Okay, welcome to the 442 After Effects tutorial. This is stuff that we did in class on April 8th, 2026. So we're going to focus on creating lower thirds and using the motion camera in After Effects for tracking texts, etc. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is create a new comp, and I'm going to create one for my shape. So I'm going to press Command N or Control N on Windows. That'll give me a new prompt for a comp. I'll just type in LT. I like to abbreviate. LT stands for lower third. And here I'll just put template. And down here, I can make sure my duration's at a length that I like. I like 8 seconds. If you want, you can turn it to 10 seconds, 15 seconds. I mean, 0.5 or 5 seconds. Let's keep it at 8. Remember that the third set of zeros is what represents seconds here. And if you want, you could change your background color. If you want it to be something other than black, if you want it to be gray, just to give you something to work against so you're not working against a transparent layer. We'll say okay. Remember, this means that your caps lock is on, and After Effects will always give you this kind of warning so that you turn off your caps lock. Okay, so I'm going to come up here to my tool panel. And my tool panel that I'm looking for is this one right here. Now, if I press it, I'll see that I have options for 5 different shapes that I can create. The moment I activate this tool, which is right up here in between my pen tool and my pan behind anchor point tool, which also, if I want, I could just press Q to activate my shape tool. Okay, so watch over here when I go from pressing the selection tool to my shape tool. All of these options will come up. And we talked about some of these options. We talked about fill, stroke, the color that makes up your shape, the line around it, and that different paths that we can actually create. And there will be more options available over here. So if I wanted to, say, create a star, I would create a star like this. Now, notice how I'm doing this. I have a mouse, right? And I haven't let go yet on the mouse. I created the shape and I haven't like let go in that way, removed my hand off the mouse. And why I did that was because I wanted to show you that if you generate a shape like this, let's just generate a little star, you keep holding on with your mouse. If you start scrolling with your mouse, you can actually generate different types of shapes. And the types of shapes that we're creating here are what we call parametric shapes. And I'll tell you about that in a second, but let's say this is what I want. Now that I let go, I could go back to V or just press over here. I can kind of shape it however I want by pressing the bounding kind of box parameters around it. And now I can start changing options up here. If I don't want yellow, I could come up here or I could come over here. You'll see that I have all these different properties for my shape. I could change the fill color here. I could press it and I can make it a little bit darker. Say okay. Up here in my stroke color, I could change that. Maybe I'll make this more of like a red and I'll make it like a dark red. So it looks more like, I don't know, firework or something. And then I could come over here to my fill color and I could change it. I could say I want this to be a gradient and I could change the gradient's direction. I could change how harsh the line is and how much of a blur it is, right? And when I come here too, I can change the 2 colors that represent my gradient. So this is my yellow over here, this is my orange over here, and I can make this a little bit more of a red and it becomes more like that. If I don't like the linear gradient, I could do a radial gradient. Kind of puts a circle in the middle and I could take this and kind of move it around. I want it to be more up here, or I want it to be over here, I want it to be over here. I could kind of put it where I want. I'm going to leave it there for now, and maybe now I'll just change this to black. I'm actually going to change this color and make it more of a real prominent red. Make it a little darker and say, okay, so this is the shape that I've created, and this is a parametric shape. How we know that this is a parametric shape is that if I go over here to my shape layer, and I go down to my contents, right? So let's just do this really quick. Let's collapse all these arrows. So this is my shape layer. Let me just rename it and name it, fire shape. Because to me, this looks like fire, I guess. That's my brain and how it works. So we have two things that make up the properties of the fire shape. We have the contents of it, and we have transform. This is just like in the effect control panel in Premiere, where we can change things under the motion for the most part. We also have opacity in here, and we do have things that represent time and temporal aspects of it. But that's for the overall shape. So we could change the anchor point, obviously, and the way to change an anchor point, by the way, is if we activate the pan behind tool up here. We're going to come to this anchor point, and now I can move it. I have snapping on. If I turn this off, I can kind of have the freedom of putting it wherever I want. But if I want my movements to be more precise and snap to specific points, I'll turn this on, and I could put it here. I could put it right smack in the middle. I could put it there. It's kind of finding these lines that it can snap to for it to be easier. So let's just say I want my anchor point to be here. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my selection tool to get out of that because I have adjusted my anchor point. And you'll see down here that I've actually changed my anchor point here. My anchor point has been adjusted here. The position, obviously, the X and the Y, and where it comes in, the scale, kind of a zoom in, it will rotate upon itself now based on this new anchor point, and the transparency, the opacity of it. And I can make all of these move. These are my keyframe indicators, right? This is where I can toggle animation. So if I just kind of toggle it on now, and I move forward 3 seconds, and I kind of change them all, you'll see a simple animation. And we talked about this before, but let's do a quick reminder that if you toggle or you lasso, any of these keyframes, and you right click, there's options for keyframes. So if I come over here and I choose the easy ease, notice the difference in this keyframe versus this keyframe. This keyframe represents a linear keyframe. This keyframe represents more of a Bezier. This has an easy ease on it. And if I come back and I watch it, it'll have more of a ease on it. It will feel less robotic when it stops. Came to kind of a slower stop, if you saw that. Subtle differences. The more you play around with After Effects, the more you will see it. So that is, and I'm going to rename this really quick. That is a parametric shape. Really quickly, I'm going to show you what a non-parametric shape is. I'm going to come up here. I will make, instead of a star, I want to make a rounded rectangle. I'm going to hold down Option, and I'm just going to create a rectangle. Okay, so I'm going to rename this non-parametric just so you could see. So the difference between a parametric and a non-parametric, if I look at the contents over here, right, and this one's a polystar, this is a rectangle. And the thing about a polystar is that I can generate a path for it, that I could change different things based on the shape that it's been created. By the way, I can also generate paths on things like the stroke. Like I could change the color from black to, let's see, what do I want it to change to? Let's change it to red. So over time, that'll slowly become red. So I can change those things over here. I can also change the color of the gradient if I want. And under the polystar path, we have these options. It's because it's a parametric shape. But if I come to the contents of my rectangle and I see the path over here, notice that I don't have the same options. So contents, rectangle, path, and then it says path 1. My shape, polystar, the path, and I have all these options here. That's because a parametric shape, you can transform it to be wider or thinner or bigger or smaller, but it's always going to be the shape that I've generated. It's never not going to be this polystar. Whereas with a non-parametric shape, I can actually change the shape of it and I can make it something other than a rectangle. So if I come over to the path and now I select the kind of bounding box around it, I can start manipulating the shape it becomes. And the reason that After Effects has this is because if you want one shape to turn into another, you can generate this path. So let me go back really quick to the beginning. Let me generate and toggle a keyframe here. And by the time that this composition ends, I want the shape to look something like this. Kind of want it to look weird and warped, kind of like a weird hat, maybe a little droopy down here, maybe even a little bit more. I mean, it's kind of becoming a rectangle, so let me find a way that it's no longer a rectangle. Okay, so now if I watch it, it can become a rectangle and slowly melt and turn into whatever shape that is. So that's the difference between a parametric and a non-parametric. The only difference, and let me do this again, is that to create a non-parametric shape, you have to hold down on Option, and then you can create your shape. Come over here, you go to the path, select path, and then you can start manipulating the edges of it to be the shape that you want it to be. If you want more edges to play around with, maybe don't make it a rectangle like I have. I'm going to delete this one last time, and we're just going to make a good old rectangle, and we are going to make a lower third. So I'm going to choose my colors really quickly. I'm going to change my fill up here to just be a solid. And I want my insides to be yellow, and I want my stroke to be more of like a dark green, kind of give it an earthy feel. Maybe I want this to be a lighter yellow. Okay, cool. I'm going to make a rectangle right on the side of my image here. I'm going to make sure this is fitting my screen. And I'm going to make it like that. Now, if I want, I could look over here at my grid and kind of make sure that they're somewhat aligned on the lines. And maybe I can even make some adjustments to it so that they don't go over, or maybe they fit this exactly. Cool. I'm going to turn that off. Okay. So here is my lower third rectangle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this LT rectangle. And I want it to move from outside the frame into the frame. So I'm going to zoom back a little bit. I'm going to do a bit of a 33 so we could see. This is everything that will appear on the screen, but you can work outside those parameters in After Effects. So I want to change the position of my rectangle, which actually means that I'm going to go to Transform, because that is where position is. I'm going to toggle keyframe right here. And since this is an 8-second comp, I want this to happen all within 1 second. So I can come up here. I'm at 23 frames. If I move, before I make that keyframe, let me move right there. There we go. I'm going to make another keyframe. And what I want it to do is end here, but I want it to begin outside of frame. So I'm going to toggle to go to previous keyframe. And I'm going to do this here. I'm not going to do it up here. I'm not going to drag it up here because I'm going to get more of a precise movement if I just move it by these numbers over here. So I'm going to drag this all the way out. Now remember, this line up here represents a linear spatial keyframe. And we can change it if we want the lower third to kind of bounce into it. I've kept it very simple. But if you want to, you can do it. Make it look nice, but not too, outside of the believability of the project. Now you could see I could take it all the way outside here, but look at how far it is, which means that the time that it's going to take in that 1 second to enter back to frame, it's going to take a little longer. So I just want to make sure it's right outside of my frame. Cool. So now I can watch. Bam, it's there. Great. So you need 2 keyframes to make this animation, right? The first keyframe, it's outside of the frame, and the second frame, the second keyframe, it's within the frame. But now we needed to exit the frame again because we don't want the lower third to be present throughout the entire show. We need to show the name of the host, and then we need to show the name of the guest, and we need to show it for about 8 seconds, and that's it. Then we need it to leave. So we're going to have this lower third leave the frame, which means at about 7 seconds, I'm going to make a keyframe that duplicates this because from 1 second to 7 seconds, I want this lower third to stay in the frame. And then from 7 seconds to 8 seconds, I want it to leave. So now I'm just going to drag this keyframe back out. Boop, 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 right about there. And that is the last keyframe. So we're having two sets of keyframes. The first set represents the lower third coming in, and the second set represents the lower third going out. And I'm going to toggle this to be easy ease, and the same over here. And now I'm going to watch it. Perfect. Now remember, I have a gray background that I'm working against, but truly what I'm creating is something that has an alpha channel. This is showing me what it actually looks like. It's validating me that I don't actually have a gray solid here. I'm just working against a gray backdrop, so it makes it easier for me to kind of figure out how to do this. Okay, I'm going to come back over here to how I view this. I'm going to go to fit, and now I'm going to create a text layer. I'm going to come up here to my horizontal type tool, and I'm going to generate a bounding box around here. And there's my bounding box. I'm going to make sure my font is small and readable, so I'll put 80 for now. And I will type in Natasha Sherritt Lakari. Her fill, I'm going to make that black, and maybe I won't give her a stroke, or if I do, I'm only going to keep it at 1, and maybe I'll make that a white so it pops, right? I can actually see it a little bit better against this. I'm going to make her name bold, and now I can make her name a little bit bigger. Come back over here and kind of put it exactly where I want it to be. Now my snapping's on. I'm going to turn this off for a bit. Whoop. Put it right up here. And maybe I want, some of the words to be together more. I could do that over here. Or maybe I want it to be like that. Maybe I want it to be, let's see, what else can this do? Like that. I don't really play around with these guys too much. I kind of like that, so I'll keep that. And now I can make her name a little bit bigger. Now that it's bigger, I kind of want it to be a little bit more spaced. And a little less like that. There we go. Get it to a point where you're happy with it. Cool. So Natasha. And now I'm just going to put one more text over here. I'm going to make a brand new one. Put underneath and say host. Now this one's too big, so I have to make it smaller so I could see it. And I'm definitely going to make this more italic. Bold italic. And I will, let's see, I can make it a little bigger, but I don't need to really see it too much. There we go, host, cool. Now the problem is that we need to animate the text, right? So we need to kind of copy what we've done to the rectangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press position so I could see the position here, so I don't have to see all those other properties. And the keyboard shortcut for that was P. I just pressed P. So I'm going to do that for this one too, because all I'm really doing this to is the position, and same for the host. I want these essentially to line up, except I do want them to be a frame or two off because it's just going to feel a little bit better that way. So we'll do this together. Toggle on the animation, go to the next one, and toggle one on there. I'm just going to go ahead and toggle these all on according to the position of the rectangle because I want them all to move together. So I might as well use these arrows to make sure that they're directly lined on top of each other. Now I know that this is going to start off frame and this one is going to end where it is. So the one that I need to add animation to is the first keyframe. So I'll come over here and I'll put it directly outside of frame, like right there. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my keyframe, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to move it about 2 frames off of this. And I'm going to do the same for this. Move it about 2 frames off. Cool. And this one, I'm also going to add that too. And this one, let's be precise with these motions. Let me move that off just like with the other. Perfect. Okay. All of this. Now we're going to select easy ease. Cool. Let's see how that looks. Kind of looks like it's moving with it, but because it's a frame or two off, you can actually see the movement of Natasha's text. Let me toggle this off so you can see that. And it looks like it's kind of moving with it. Now, this I actually, if you look and we kind of watch it, notice how the eye leaves that. I don't love that, so I'm gonna put that back. Make sure they're aligned and that kind of moves with that. I think that I needed to get out of the frame faster so that the the eye doesn't overlap the rectangle. So I actually have to move this one before this ends. Excuse me. Cool, that's better. It's little details like that. If you kind of notice that this is outside of your box, you got to make adjustments then. So I'm watching it and it's not outside my box. And that's kind of perfect. That's what I want it to be. Okay, looks good, looks good. Great. So now we just got to do it for the host. We can align it to these guys, add a position here, add a position here. I can toggle this back on so I can actually see it. Let's go back to this one, make sure it's off. Let's give it a little bit more room because it's going to move really fast since it's just host. It doesn't have a longer text like Natasha does. So we need to move it back a little bit so that it doesn't rush into frame. I'm going to move it back even a little bit more. I did that about -318. So I'm just going to copy that, go forward, and then go to the next one, toggle that animation, go to the next one, and toggle that animation. And here I'm going to just paste that so I can duplicate that. Let's see how, wait, first, easy ease that. Cool. Looks good to me. So if it's at a place that we really like it, now all we got to do is export it. So I'm going to come up here to composition and I'm going to come down to add to render queue. And this is how I'm going to get it outside of After Effects. My output mode, I need to change. So I'm going to click that. My format, I do not want it to be an H.264. This is an asset. And actually what I want to do is export it as a QuickTime. Under channels, what I want to tell After Effects is that I need it to be the lower third that I've created, but I need it to be against my transparent background. And by doing that, I'm going to have the RGB plus alpha. I could target either my RGB or my alpha or both together, and I want both kind of together. And now down here, I just want my audio output off, and I'll say okay. Last but not least, output 2, LT template. Come over here and get rid of template and just put Natasha and save it in your assets folder there. I've already created one, so I'm just going to say yes, replace. I'll press render. Yes, it's okay, replace. And it's done. And if I come on over to Premiere and I import my asset, which is LT Natasha, which I just did, and I do this, let's look at how that looks.
To be having a guest who grew up in the Caribbean, who's coming into the kitchen to share some of his recipes that are completely homemade, that his...
So there we go. That is how you create a lower third. Now, if you want to make a kind of pre-comp of this, let's go back to my LT temp because you want to maintain Natasha's in case you have edits to do to it. But now you want to make one for Ryan. This is how you do it. Come up here. Let's go Command D for now. Let us return. Call it LT Ryan. Let's go into that comp. And there it is. And now we can just rename this for Ryan. So we have Natasha over here and we have Ryan over here, and we can actually rename now this. Instead of it being a template, we can give this to Natasha. So just copying it would be actually the most effective way for you to kind of do this. Whoop. So in Ryan's, we're going to come to his position. We just got to make some adjustments. Starts off screen and it ends here, but his text is 2 in the middle. So we're going to have to adjust this by moving it this way. And to be precise with this, I want you to just come in here, highlight it, and now Command C to copy it. Because watch what happens when I press play. Ryan's is still moving. That's because this keyframe was set to Natasha's name, which was longer. And we need to adjust the keyframe on his name so that it doesn't move. So let's use this to go to next keyframe. And here is where I'll now highlight that and Command V to paste it so that I'm making sure that these two keyframes are set to the same speed so that it just stays on Ryan's name and Ryan's name doesn't move. Cool. And under host, let me just change that to guest. Sweet. Okay. And pretty much it's the same process. Now we come up here, we go to composition, we go to add to render queue. We do all the same settings. We change this from H.264 to QuickTime, RGB plus alpha, audio output off. On and LT Ryan is under assets. We'll save it there. We'll press render. Should take 2 seconds. In Premiere, Command I, import. Where's Ryan? There he is.
What we're gonna do.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
So today, what I'm going to do is a remedy that was made by my grandmother growing up.
Now I can look over here and see that this is slightly off of my grid marks, but we can adjust that in Premiere later, luckily enough. So that's that, and I'll see you for the 2.5 tutorial.